This episode of the Cloud Accounting Podcast is sponsored by Intuit QuickBooks. Accounting professionals and bookkeepers have long been at the forefront of using cutting-edge technologies to take the profession to the next level and to ensure they're delivering the best possible service to their clients. Whether you want to grow your firm or sharpen your skills, Intuit QuickBooks provides you with the AI-driven products, services, and the resources that you need to help all sides of your career take shape. To learn more about how QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Online Accountant, QuickBooks Live Bookkeeping, and the Pro Advisor program can help you grow your practice and scale your impact, head over to cloudaccountingpodcast.promo/QuickBooks. That is cloudaccountingpodcast.promo/QuickBooks. QuickBooks, backing you.
People want to do all kinds of crazy, silly, stinking thinking to, do it, and they just can't make the transition.
Welcome to the Cloud Accounting Podcast. I'm Blake Oliver.
I'm David Leary.
Lee Podolsky.
I'm Mary Hambleton.
Ronald Baker. No, just kidding. Rhondalynn Korolak.
Hey, Rhondalynn. Thanks for joining us so much. This is the end of day one, the accountant day at QuickBooks Connect.
We've made it.
We made it.
A full day of recording. It's very exciting. And you have to roll with the flow at big conferences like this because everybody's schedules change. People don't show up to interviews. People have personal things. But it's great because we have to just go with the flow.
We're going to go with the flow. So two of our interview subjects could not be subjected to the podcast today. So we have some substitutes.
But it was meant to be, right? Because we were going to have a podcast to talk about value pricing.
Yeah.
And so Rhondalynn wrote a book recently on value pricing. I was like, this is going to be awesome. We're going to have the 3 thought leaders on value pricing, and 2 couldn't show up.
Yeah.
But a fan of the podcast showed up, and her firm is currently moving from the billable hour to value pricing.
So Lee and Mary, are you at the same firm?
We are.
So give us your full names again and tell us about your firm so that we got a little context here.
Yeah.
I'm Lee Podolsky, president of Breakwater Accounting Advisory in Wilmington, Delaware. We do outsource bookkeeping and accounting for small to mid-sized businesses, nonprofits, and most recently, family offices.
And I'm Mary Hambleton, and I'm the director of operations at Breakwater. And we're trying to move towards value pricing. We're looking to be more profitable and offer more value to our clients. So
fantastic. And how many staff, partners, people at your firm?
Currently, we have 31 on staff and 2 interns.
And Rhondalynn, for our listeners who may not be as familiar with you and what you're up to, what brings you to the value pricing discussion today?
Oh, look, I think earlier this year, I published a couple of books in a workbook called Pricing Value and Implementing Pricing Value. It's being distributed it's my first New York publishing contract. So everything I've done has been very Australia focused. But Ron Baker has taken me under his wing. And the guys at Vera Sage introduced me to my first publisher, and that book is actually going into all the universities and business schools in about 26 different countries because of that deal. So it's pretty cool that we're going to teach accountants right from the get-go how to price properly.
Wow. That's going to pay dividends down the road. That's great.
To those accountants and bookkeepers.
To those accountants and bookkeepers, yeah. But for those of us who are learning it now, what can we distill, in 20 minutes of a podcast episode when it comes to moving from the billable hour to a value pricing model? What are the challenges that you are seeing in the American market, I guess? Maybe that's a good place to start. And then we can kind of hear what Mary and Lee, what their experience has been as well.
Look, I think there are many challenges, the biggest of which is people's mindset. Everyone comes into this thing with a lot of baggage, right? When we're doing pricing value, you're not actually learning something from the beginning. It's not as if, you didn't know how to speak Spanish yesterday and you are now learning how to speak Spanish. We actually have to unlearn all of the bad habits that we had that were around the concepts of hourly or cost-based pricing before we can do value pricing or pricing value properly. So that's a big thing, is because it takes a lot to shake bad habits. And so that would be the big one for me. People want to hang on to timesheets. People want to do all kinds of crazy, silly, stinking thinking to, do it, and they just can't make the transition. The second is you need to control your own bloody fear, right? The biggest thing I hear is people saying, I don't think I'm worth it. I don't think I can do it. My clients are price conscious. Hang on a second here. It ain't about you. The value isn't about your value. It's about what is it worth to the customer. And so we need to reframe that conversation. We get to the value of what it's worth. How thirsty is the customer? Is the customer, at their home where they can get a glass of water? Or are they basically crawling across the desert after not having drank anything for 48 hours in 40 degrees Celsius heat, dying of dehydration? The level of value is different for those two different people. We need to get to the heart of that. We need to have better value conversations. Everybody just wants a price. We were in the panel discussion and someone said, I'm value pricing. I knew things were going to go bad as soon as I heard them say this, right? Value pricing, and we sent out a letter to 700 clients telling them that our prices are going up. Well, I got news for you. You're not value pricing if you're not pricing every single client individually. You can't just send out a mass email and then try to sell the value in the back door. The value has to be set and established and agreed upon before you ever quote. Premature quotation is just as bad as premature ejaculation, and there ain't no blue pill for it, right?
That's going to be the clip at the beginning of this episode.
Episode title.
On that, that's a great transition point now. So
No one wants to talk after that.
So, Mary, Lee, where is your firm now in that whole journey? What's the status?
So we have been working towards value pricing. We definitely don't want to be, we're not doing billable hourly anymore, but a lot of times when we're figuring out our pricing, or how we have figured out in the past, is we're figuring out, well, how many hours do we think this will take? And then we're coming up with our price, and then we're giving them that quote.
Right. So that's not really value pricing.
No.
Right?
So we're saying we know that that's not the way to do it. So we're working towards getting away from that, and sort of understanding the knowledge that we have is something that they don't have, and letting them do what they do well so we can do what we do well, but we should get paid to do what we do well.
What are the biggest obstacles for you when it comes to actually making that vision happen of doing the value pricing?
I think just getting comfortable with the conversation to have with each client. And as we get more confident each time, I think we'll get better and better at that. We already are very focused on each client relationship, getting to know them, what their pain points are and everything. So it's just sort of moving that along towards our pricing, and how we do proposals and have that conversation up front. So it's a learning process for sure.
Did you have to let go of any clients as
Yes.
you started? You have.
We have.
So there were clients that just said, I
They
don't want to
value,
switch?
right? And they didn't have the value. They just weren't a good fit for us because they didn't have the value for what we were providing to them, and it just wasn't a good fit.
Did they do the extra, or did you kind of fire them?
We've
fired
Fired them, yes. In a nice way.
And what
Politely.
kind of services are we talking about here? Like bookkeeping, accounting? Like,
Yep. So we do bookkeeping, payroll processing, controller services, anything up to the tax returns. We don't do tax returns. Yeah.
So no tax in the firm at all?
No tax.
Nope.
Oh, interesting.
By choice.
What has been like the hardest thing so far? Is it been selling it internally to your team? Has it been killing your timesheets? Like, what, as you move on this journey, what's been the hardest thing for you?
I think figuring out, what's the right price, what's the right package to put together for a client, and then, do you offer multiple ones? Do you look at each client individually and figure out what they need? A lot of times when people come to us, we've been fortunate that they're coming to us. We're not having to go out looking for clients, but it's always an emergency, and sometimes we don't have the luxury of time to figure out what they need. We need to solve a emergency right away.
Right. Yeah, Rhondalynn, that is something that I always had a challenge with when I was trying to value price, and I'm not sure I ever really did it, was somebody comes to me and I need to get working right away. Under the hourly model, it was easy, right? I just tell them my rate, I get going, I start billing them. With value pricing, I have to have this big conversation, understand all of their needs, and try to, it seems like it takes a lot more time. So do you have any tips?
Do you have to give some value away for free?
I think that helping someone clarify and quantify what it's worth to them, right? I think that, first of all, one price is always going to be the wrong price. So that's job number one. You should never, ever, ever be giving somebody one price. It should always be a set of three prices, and there's reasons for that, right? But question number two is around this value thing. People pay only for what they value. And it doesn't require you to have an hour-long conversation to get to the heart of value with a client, right? So at the end of the day, what you need to establish in a nutshell is one very simple thing, and it's often missed by a lot of people. What is the cost to that client of continuing to ignore the problem or not have the solution? If you can just ask questions that get to that one thing, you can value price.
Because they'll be willing to pay anything less than the price of not fixing the problem.
Correct.
That's a baseline.
The biggest drama that I see people say, somebody didn't like my price or somebody, didn't see the value. It's because you have not assisted them to quantify and acknowledge what it actually costs them personally, financially, or strategically to not have the answer to that problem. And if you can do that, you can value price. And then you want to think about things like deal breakers, right? I would want to throw in, what you want to do is you want to create so much economic value, it's a bloody no-brainer for them to do it, right? So what you're trying to do is you're trying to create a situation where your economic value is so huge, you immediately disqualify your competitors. And that could include a lot of things, right? Like if somebody came to you and if it was for a tax return, they could say, well, I'm really afraid because I'm running a tech company and I've got this R&D thing that I'm going to get audited. Well, then you just take audit insurance and you make that part of the value of your package. So you're looking for their deal breakers. What causes David to walk away from this? That is part of the value. But you've got to think, you've got to practice this and think on your feet and ask the right questions. But it shouldn't take you hours to get to value for something specific. Somebody comes to you and they're like, if I don't have my financial statements turned around, I can't buy my dream home. Oh, okay. So what would it be worth to you? You start to have the conversation. You can get to the heart of value pretty quick.
Have you guys had a conversation like that? Do you ask your clients?
We ask them a lot more, I think, in the initial conversation about, what their business is about or what they're struggling. I guess we do, what they're struggling with.
Right. We're listening to them and their pain points, and we can identify right away if they're just focused on, price. That's the cost and so it's trying to get them past that and talking to them about what really is driving them. But what I think would be really helpful for us is sort of more the tactical of the types of questions to be drawing that information out. So maybe we'll be reading your book.
Grab a copy. If you read Pricing Value, I sort of explain it. And then in the workbook, I basically literally have created a set of checklists and scripts. And everything is color-coded. It's like, ask these questions and then take this information, and that goes to economic value. So it's like a roadmap to implement it.
So Mary and Lee, we've got a little bit of time. You basically have a free consulting session right now with Rhondalynn.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Do you have any questions that you would like to ask her, to help you with your value pricing journey?
Well, so we really are working on this in our firm right now in our strategic planning for the next 5 years. And one thing that came out was we're talking about what we're offering is something that is possibly hard to quantify is the peace of mind, like having clients tell us, I can finally sleep at night. Sort of that, piece that, how do you put a dollar on that? I don't know, but that is something that comes up a lot.
It's like a MasterCard commercial. It's priceless.
Yes, it's priceless.
Not all pain is financial, right? So there's personal and strategic as well. So when you're dealing with something like that, you would want to be asking questions of, so if you were able to get a good night's sleep, what would that be worth to you? Or if you were, not getting woken up every night because of these things, how much extra time would you have? You can start to back your way into questions around that to get more specificity.
Mm-hmm. Actually asking the clients, what is that worth to you?
Yeah, straight out. It's on the script. It's just straight out. I just ask, I say, look, when you've thought about acquiring a solution to this problem that we're talking about right now, what is the most difficult thing associated with finding the solution?
If I'm an accountant
start to drill
bookkeeper,
down.
right? That's a very scary question for me to ask my client because I'm afraid that they might say it's only worth $200 a month to me, or like it's a scary to ask an open-ended question of my client like that. It's a little scary.
Look, a lot of the pain that our clients are in is pretty big. Right? So when you take a look at because I'm talking about cash flow tomorrow, right? So I've done a lot of stats in America and compared them to what I know about Australia. 87 to 93% of small businesses have severe cash flow and working capital pain. If you start to actually figure out how much cash is trapped in their business, if you start to figure out how much interest carrying charges they're doing. I did a pricing session last night for a bunch of people pre-con, right? And we sat down and we practiced. And one of the ladies said, it's costing us $560 a month in credit cards because we're not able to pay our credit cards. So the interest alone was $560 a month. Well, now you know, right? And you lost opportunity costs. Like if you don't collect your debts quick in your business, right? You actually probably have to hire somebody and pay a wage to hire somebody in your accounting department to try to collect money. That's a lost cost that it's not even on your radar. Yeah. You start to add up all of these things: opportunity cost, interest carrying cost, debt factoring, the cost of somebody receivables chasing stuff. That's a lot of money. And if you add that up the whole point is you get your client to acknowledge the magnitude of those losses. And so I had a client, I'm just going to take this back to kind of when I was coaching SMEs, right? And I had this client that was a $24 million electrical contractor. So it's a big company, but they were carrying $2 million of receivables a month at 92 days to collection. And I kept telling them, you need to collect your debts quicker. And they all sat there going like this. One day I went in and said, it costs you $234,000 that you're flushing down the toilet every single year because you haven't collected your debts. Well, boom, I had their attention. Because I said, if you got that money, you could both pay your mortgages off. So we need to make it, if someone's problem is $234,000, it's not that hard to tell them, and by the way, my cost to you to fix this year and put all the systems in place will be $40,000. Thank you very much. I take Visa, MasterCard, and check.
So you guys said you're starting to go for family offices. Mm-hmm. Is that because there's opportunity there's just more money in that? Or what made you choose the family office?
Actually, by being asked several times, and it actually the services that we provide to the family offices are very similar. We already have the setup and the technology and everything to do this for our business clients. So it's an easy addition to be using. It's just a different client segment that has a lot more concern around security and confidentiality.
Any other questions?
I guess my only other question would be around to me it sounds like we're almost talking to them about the return on their investment. They invest in us, and this is what they would get in return. Is that right?
Yeah, it's about a whole bunch of things. It's about their feelings, their solutions to their pain points, and the desired transformations in their business. You're right here, and you want to get to there, and how is that going to happen? So it's more than just pain points. It sort of encompasses.
And it's interesting because that's a very different conversation than they're used to ever having with an accountant or right. Or attorney or anything. So it's going to rock them a little bit.
For sure.
Because they're so used to, I've got these proposals from these three firms, and they're trying to sort of match it all together. So to just veer it to that conversation and really get them engaged in that is key.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and don't be afraid to shy away from this stuff so I've done a 3-hour session at QB Connect in Sydney and Melbourne several times, and I did one last night for a pre-con, and it is not uncommon to see tears. And one of the participants that was in the workshop felt uncomfortable about that. And I said, look, we need to be asking these questions because they may have never voiced these concerns and fears that they have to a single other human being on the planet. And when you know that and you've developed that rapport with them, you now have leverage. Leverage in two ways. Leverage because you know what to price it, but also they are extremely motivated to fix the problem, right? If somebody doesn't realize they have a problem, they got all the procrastination and excuses in the world. But if you can help them crank it up and realize that this is a $234,000 problem, you're going to get action. And you want to get action because you don't want to do the work. When you transition to value pricing, the whole thing is also about them being accountable and stepping up and taking action in their own business. It's not your responsibility to fix the problems. They need to step up as well, too. And that's part of it.
What makes it a true partnership?
Yeah, a collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
Lee and Mary, how do people get a hold of you? If they're listening to the podcast, they want to contact you.
You can visit our website, which is breakwatercorp.com.
And Rhondalynn, how would people get a hold of you?
At pricingvalue.co.
And what about on Twitter?
My name, Rhondalynn. There's probably only one of me, so it's an easy one.
Perfect. And enjoy the rest of the QuickBooks Connect.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thanks
everybody.
for joining us.